Welcome to the Parenting with Impact podcast with your hosts Elaine Taylor-Klaus and Diane Dempster, co-creators of ImpactParents.com, an online community, award-winning blog, and service organization helping parents all over the world to raise complex kids become capable, independent adults.
Hi everyone, Elaine and Diane here, and we know that you want your complex kids to grow up to be happy and independent, and yet you're not always sure how or when to help with that.
In this podcast, we'll encourage you to collaborate with all kinds of complex kids and support them in navigating life and learning.
And we'll interview leading experts from around the world, as well as parents in our own community, talking about how training for parents actually helps these complex kids.
We'll talk about the issues we hear parents struggling with all the time and how a coach approach can support and empower your amazing young people.
We won't tell you what to do. We're going to help you figure out how. So let's move on to the next conversation. Welcome back, everybody, to another conversation in the Parenting with Impact podcast. I am excited for this conversation today with Jo Dodd. Jo, welcome. It's great to have you.
Great to be here.
We are going to talk inspiration and empowerment and positivity. And Jo has recovered from a world of career in corporate and is writing children's books and books for moms and doing some cool stuff in the world. So let's dive in and tell us how you came from where you started across the pond to landing in my own home of Atlanta, Georgia, and to be doing this work.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll make it cliff notes as quickly as possible because it's quite a long story. But basically, 27 years ago, I came over here as an intern and I was studying hotel management and was at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis and was supposed to go back.
I was married there.
Were you really?
Yeah, oh, that's where my wedding reception was. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's where I met my husband. So we share something in common. So I was there supposedly for a year, ended up meeting my husband, who also was working there at the time. And roll forward, now 27 years later, we have 4 boys and I never went home. I still visit home. England is definitely still home to me, but this is home as well. But yeah, I got married very young. I was in my early 20s. And had a child at 23. So we have 4 boys and my oldest is 25. And then we have a 19-year-old and then 13 and 10. So we have kind of a big range with our boys. And to be very honest, like that was what being married that young and having a child that young, I'm still a child myself, essentially, really put me into this. I very quickly got on that hamster wheel of like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? You know, like having to work harder, and completely lost myself in balancing, trying to be a parent, trying to be a wife, trying to climb the corporate ladder. And honestly, I didn't really ever stop. I knew internally there was something going on. I knew I wasn't really happy internally. And there was guilt that came with that. And there was, lots of resentment that came with that. But I didn't ever stop and do anything about it until COVID hit, until 2020. And then I was forced to stop.
Yeah.
So I got furloughed from my job, which for me was the best thing that could have ever happened because it really did make me stop and evaluate, what are we doing here?
Right.
And really,
can I just pause you for one second to highlight that? Because, in our coaching groups, we start all of our coaching groups with celebrations. It's not uncommon for a parent to come to a call and go, I don't know what to celebrate. Yeah. And sometimes when we don't know what to celebrate, I guide them to say, what's not going well that you're handling better than you thought you would? And so it's very common that the gifts are in the challenges.
Absolutely.
In our community, especially. And so I love that notion that being furloughed was actually a gift for you. And it sounds like you were able to see that, which is beautiful.
I was. Yeah, it actually quite quickly I was able to see it as well, because in the past, so that, that had been happening for 27 years, but in the past, like 10 years, my youngest son, Joseph, is what you would define as a complex kid. And we're still going through, he has some undiagnosed health issues. He certainly has some learning challenges. And so it had been like on top of everything, I was trying to juggle, how do I parent Joseph? Like, how can I give him the best of me? And yet I wasn't even giving me the best of me.
Yeah.
And
it sounds like what you were doing for the other kids, you had enough experience to know what to do and it wasn't working.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I also didn't have the support system. I didn't have the resources of like, how do I work with this? How do I cope with all these doctor's appointments? What are the right questions to ask? How do I, but more importantly, it was this realization that I cannot keep going like this because I have nothing left to give inside. Like I really was so depressed and so down.
Depleted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was nothing left. And so that it really was when I was forced to stop, all these emotions came out because I was just exhausted. I was so tired. And so what was nice, to your point, I allowed that to come, and I allowed myself to be sad. I allowed myself to fight. I found a therapist. I started taking various courses that just sounded good to me, like meditation courses. And I've done all kinds of things like sound healing and all these crazy things that, before I'd have been like, I don't have time for that. But it's really helped me just internally feel better. And what happened was as soon as I did.
Can I just, because you're just throwing me these gems, so if you don't mind, highlighting occasionally. So one of the things we teach and talk about a lot is if you don't know where to focus, there are two options: lean into relationship and focus on self-care.
Yeah.
And we tend as moms especially to see self-care as some kind of a luxury that we can't afford.
Yeah.
But in fact, what you're speaking to is that it is essential for the health of our families.
It has to happen. And that's the biggest realization I had was I have to stop with this. I actually had a coach at the time too. I got a coach, and I was talking at this, and this is a book I'm about to write, is Stepping Away from Supermom. It was, learning how to take off the cape and just be, because I was in this sort of martyrdom of like, I have to get everything done. I have to do this. I have to, all these things I have to do. And my coach very quietly said to me, she's like, Jo, you can take that supermom cape off.
Cape off. Right.
You don't have to wear it. And that was the biggest realization for me, is like, first of all, how do I do that? Because that's not the easiest thing to go from, like that type of personality to just allowing things to come. But that's what I'm really passionate about helping other women see now, is like, you can do it, and you can. Actually, my life is now so much better than it's ever been. We still have the same issues. We still have an undiagnosed child, and we still have, we have all of the things that we had before, but I can handle them better because I'm taking care of me. And that's the biggest.
Totally. Like, we are singing in the same choir. So many things come up as I hear that. Like when we first started, and this is going back, over 12 years, we captured the first round of what we called our avatars of parents of complex kids. And one of them was Sue the Supermom.
Yeah.
Right. And she wears a cape and the whole thing. And we talk a lot about that difference between doing and being.
Oh, yeah.
And how difficult it is because we've been conditioned to do. Yeah. And you can still do from a different way of being.
Absolutely.
And that's really what I think you're speaking to.
And more. And that's actually one of the things, coming into the new year, it's very different how it used to be really focused on what do I have to do or what have I not done? So it's all focused on doing. And so really I've come up with this mantra that I'm sharing with my clients and my friends is, stop with the to-dos. Stop with the to-dos of 2022. Who are you going to be in 2023? Like if you're going to focus on anything, focus on how you want to feel and who do you need to be to get to that point. And that's, that's the simplicity of it. It really is focusing on being.
Yeah, you can't see it, but on my bulletin board, every year, Diane and I start the year with an affirmation and energy of what do we want for this year. And very often, for several years in a row, it was ease and flow.
Oh, I
want it to be, I want to lean into ease and flow.
Yeah.
And one year it was creative and curious. So we always start with something to really hold the energy that we want for the year, because the doing is going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. It will definitely happen. Yeah. And it's whether you decide, I love ease and flow. That's one of the things I have learned is like, how can I let this be easy, or at least not easy? How can I let it be easier? Like instead of, trying to swim upstream, how do I jump in and just let it flow and go with the flow?
Well, and that starts with asking, what if it was okay for it to be easy?
Yeah, exactly.
What would it look like to give myself permission for it to be easy?
Yeah, such a big question. Yeah. And that was the type of work I did. So in the past 2 years, that was like the type of, I was in, lots of different groups where these questions were coming up. And at first it was so foreign. And I was the triggered Supermom Susan. I was the one that's like, I don't have time for that. That's nice for them. I don't have time. And it was this big shift of like, actually I do, and it's just this, it's a shift in your mindset. And once you can it's a process, and it's certainly something that takes time, but with every day, if you keep up with this type of work, it gets so much better.
Right. Really. Well, and it's a constant, like we're all a work in progress.
Always. Oh, yeah.
And so part of it is, I have to ask, this is a strange question.
Yeah.
But those of you who are seeing this on YouTube can see that behind Joe's head is this giant sunshine on the wall. Was that sunshine there before this or since?
This is my company. So this is what happened. So in that time when I stopped, I had a 6-month furlough, and I was invited to go back after that furlough ended. And there was just something within me. It was like, I cannot get back on that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, what can I do? And as I stopped and as I allowed these things to come, it was like the faucet had turned on, and like all this creativity just like whoosh, it just came. And so that's where the books came from. I wrote these children's books.
What are the children's books? Because we'll link to them in the show notes. But so you wrote children's books.
So I knew I'd always wanted to write children's books, but I had no idea like how to do it. So I learned about that, and I self-published. The first one is called Tilly Toad's Heavy Load. They were all about like empowering, the power of positive thinking, embracing diversity, and crushing fear. That's the kind of the theme of the books. So Tilly Toad's Heavy Load it came to me in a dream, and it was just all about allowing, feeling into your feelings, allowing them to come, and then doing something with them. So, learning how to feel your feelings and then do something with them. And then the second book I wrote with Joseph, my youngest son. And that was so amazing. It's called We All Like Different Things, and That's A-OK With Me. And it's all about diversity. And it's a poem that like he came up with the idea. He came up with that. We all like different things, and that's A-OK with me. And then I, kind of wrote a poem, and he helped, craft the poem, helped pick the illustrations, helped, figure out how it was going to look. And I can tell you for him, this was a child that would not raise his hand in the classroom. Mm-hmm. For fear of being wrong. Yeah. This was a child that, in the special ed system that was just frail and like, timid. And now he's a published author. And we had a book launch party in our neighborhood, and he was there signing books, asking people like, would you like a signed copy? And now he's writing another book of his own, a chapter book, The Secret Adventures of Boomer and Rang, the Incredible Time Traveling Twins. I mean, he's just like,
lovely.
For him, it's showing him that you don't have to like, so what if you physically find it hard to put pen to paper and write? His imagination and he can tell a story so well. Yeah. And so let's forget about the how you do that. Let's just do it. So that was big.
So I want to, again, I'm going to highlight something because it's a great coaching message, right? Is that we tend to get stuck in the how.
Oh, yeah.
And what you're speaking to is to have the vision, to allow our kids to have a vision, to encourage them in that vision, even if we think it's crazy or it's impossible or there's no way, to encourage them in their vision anyway.
Exactly.
Because the how will work itself out.
It will show itself to you.
But the ability to dream and envision a future for yourself, that's what you want to create. That's what we want for our kids more than anything.
Absolutely. And that was the biggest piece and I'll get to the son in a minute with the company, but like that was the biggest piece with Joseph, was kind of opening his eyes at the same time that I was opening mine to this new world of like, wow, now we can say we hold this vision and like, we don't know how it's going to happen. But
and wow, okay.
Yeah. And and it's okay if it doesn't work out quite the way, because we learn from that too. So it was just all this fun of like, if it fails, so what? We'll learn. And Joseph will tell you to this day, he's like, failure is a gift. Like he now speaks like that. So we did that, and we actually got it was on Good Morning America Online. Like it was like it got some coverage, and that also helped him realize he he had been for so long inwardly feeling like he wasn't good at anything. And I was trying so hard to prove to him that he was. And he's now done it himself. Like, he's just like, oh,
you can't convince somebody of something.
No.
They need to experience it.
Experience it.
And so these kids need a win.
Yeah. And he has
this massive win.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that was that. And then the final children's book was Take That Fear. And it's based on a story with my now 13-year-old Ethan. And again, it's a very simple poem. It's based on his experience. And so, he helped craft it. And that was one. It's about stop saying fearless. Don't try to be fearless. Like, we have to listen to our fear. We have to hear what it's saying because it's trying to protect us. Yeah. But let's dig deep and find the voice of courage, because that voice isn't always as loud. But when we can hear both, and we can hear fear and we can hear courage, then we're going to do well. So that's what that was. I
say to my kid all the time, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Because, don't let fear, the other motto that really, I think, worked a lot for my kids was don't let fear of striking out keep you from playing the game.
Yes. I love that.
It was some Disney movie or something.
Yeah.
Really
it just,
home at just the right age.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So those are the children's books that came in as I'd written them. And I was, in the process of publishing Tilly. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make my own company. I'm going to, I'm not going to go back to work. I'm going to try and see what happens if I launch my own company as an author and a coach and a speaker, because coaching and speaking was something I used to do. Like, I was leading a small learning and development team. And, so I was used to coaching. I was used to speaking in the corporate environment, but I was like, well, what if I could do that, differently? What if I can help other parents, have this shift like I've had? So I made my company. I thought long and hard. I was like, what would be fun? Because that was the thing. I wanted it to be based in ease and flow and fun and what makes me feel good. So I came up with Joetopia Productions. And that's where this sun came from, because I just started playing with a logo, and I was doing it myself, and I was like, what colors make me feel good? What colors bring joy? And so that's where the yellow and the orange came. And then as I wrote out Joetopia, the dot of the eye, I was like, oh, that would be really cool if that dot of the eye was like a statement for me that brings me back to, how I would like to feel in this world of Joetopia. And so for me, it's the sun, because even on my darkest days, I can find the sun. And that's been this big statement for me, like dealing with depression. And I am on this journey of coming out of depression. I'm currently weaning off of depression antidepressants. Mm-hmm. But like, it's that realization that I can be sad and I can have problems and I can have these issues, and I can find little ways to find joy every day. So for me, that's what this statement is. And it was really lovely to bring the boys along on that, because they became, within my company, they have roles. And so Ethan he is my director of dreams, because he refuses to let me dream small. He has these big, bold, lofty dreams. And he's like, Mom, Tilly's going to be, the next Winnie the Pooh. And, it was wonderful to see his joy in that. And then Joseph is my director of bear hugs and belly laughs, because he is just so joyful. And we had this discussion of like, all right, I'm starting this company. There are going to be days where it's going to be really hard. There are going to be days where I feel like giving up. And Joseph was like, yeah, and on those days you could do with a hug. I was like, I absolutely could do with a hug. And so now he'll see me and he's like, he'll just put his arms out and give me a big hug. And it's just been this lovely thing to have them come on this journey with
you. Right. Yeah. And there's something, what I love that you're modeling here is what we in coaching call transparency. Mm-hmm. Right. We don't need to pretend to our kids that we've got it all together and that we know everything. Yeah. We actually need to be human to our kids and invite them on the journey of being human with all of the gifts and challenges that come with that.
Absolutely. I'm so passionate about that, because that's the thing. I show my vulnerabilities to them, and it's like,
yes.
And they see me coming out of that. So they see
you're not landing. And I want to be clear for people. You're not landing it on them. You're not dropping it on them.
No.
You're allowing them to see the range.
Absolutely.
Right? And sadness is one of the emotions you feel every day, likely. And so is joy.
And so is joy.
Everything in between, right? And so knowing that all of that is what it is to be human is a really powerful lesson for our kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then you moved into a different kind of writing, it sounds like.
Well, it was interesting. So I did the children's books, but then in my heart, I knew like I had this feeling that I had to tell my story. And so I started this book that is coming, Stepping Away from Supermom. But at the time it felt heavy because I was still dealing with, recovering from this lifestyle that I'd had. And it didn't quite feel right. It felt like I was forcing something to come out that wasn't quite ready to come out. And so I sat and thought for a moment, and I was just like, how can I take this really dark topic of depression, and particularly depression in mums, and bring some sort of levity to it, or something that opens up a conversation that doesn't feel as heavy as, just talking about depression. And so I honestly don't know exactly where it came from. It was one of those, I think I opened the door
downloads.
Yeah, it was a download. And this poem just started coming from me. And it's Dear Mama Bear with the effed up hair. And that's like, it's this picture book for mums that I'm so passionate about, because it is not just a silly book with a shocking title. It really is. It takes you on a journey from, the mum with the perfect hair and the perfect nails and the little baby that's sleeping through the night and all that vision of how we think motherhood should be or is going to be, and goes through this story with beautiful illustrations, with humor and with darkness. So it shows both. It's poignant and it's dark, but it's also going to make you laugh. And the number of mums I've shown it to or who have bought it now that are like, and I just recently read it at an event, and there were so many women in the audience, like with tears in their eyes, that came up to me afterwards, and they're like, that's exactly how I feel. And so in writing that, it was just, I just want mums to know they're not alone. Like, we're not alone in this.
Are you familiar with positive intelligence yet? Have you been exposed to that yet?
No.
All right. Well, you and I will talk offline about that. But there's some beautiful work and research that's been done on positive intelligence, and it's a way of grasping the saboteurs or the shadow side or the gremlin, or there are a lot of language in coaching and therapy around the voices in our head that are, as you say, trying to protect us, but tend to beat us up.
Yeah.
And as you said, my saboteur, one of my lead saboteurs, my gremlin, is a woman named Prudence, who is a cold, calculating, masquerading as a warm, loving mom, right? And her nails are done and her hair is done and she's always dressed perfectly. And so when I hear Mama Bear with the effed up hair, I'm like, I know her so well.
Love it.
So I cannot wait to see this book. And we will, for everybody, we will have all these in the show notes. I've already sent a note to Britt asking her to add them to our reading carousel. So you'll be able to get them there. And I'm really excited about that.
Thank you.
So, Joe, believe it or not, our time is wrapping. So what I want to ask you is, first of all, how can people find out more and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is livinginjotopia.com. And I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram at the same handle, so at livinginjotopia. I'm on Facebook, but not as much. So Instagram is probably the best place to find me, at livinginjotopia. Livinginjotopia.com.
Okay. And same in Instagram. So we'll get that in the show notes. And as we come to wrap this conversation today, and again, all of the links to the books will be in the show notes, so you can find them there if you'd like. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners, or something you hope that parents will take away from today? Really just the knowing that I think we tend to look externally to be able to find our light again, or to find that sparkle. And I spent so many years trying to do that. And it's the biggest realization that it's your sparkle hasn't gone, your shine hasn't gone, your light hasn't gone. It's right there inside of you. And it's all about allowing. So my biggest advice would be to at first just go inward and start allowing that feeling to come back. And you can have both. You can have darkness and light at the same time. Yeah. For sure. And in fact, that is what it is to be human. Yeah, absolutely. This has been such a pleasure. So do you have a favorite motto or quote that you'd like to share? Oh, my goodness. There's so many quotes that now off the top of my head, I can't come up with. One that just kind of goes with what I just said that I have for me is embrace the light within and share it with the world, because we all have these different gifts and talents. And if we all would just embrace what's inside,
and share it with the world, imagine how much better the world would be.
Isn't that the truth? That is such a clear and simple truth.
Thank you.
So, Jo, I want to acknowledge you for the journey you've taken or are taking, and for still being on your journey, and for allowing whatever to come up for you as you move into this new adventure. I really honor what you've done. And as a fellow traveler, I know how hard that shift can be. So I really want to respect and honor that for you. And thank you for doing this and bringing your light. It makes a difference.
Thank you so much.
To those of you listening and tuning in, thank you also for what you're doing for yourself and for your kids. Who you are and who you be sets the tone for your family and for the communication and the relationships you cherish most. So great lessons from today about embracing your light within, allowing yourself to be the parent you want to be. You're tuning in here, listening, because that's who you are and where you're trying to be on your journey. So really want to acknowledge that for you, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, everyone.
You've been listening to the Parenting with Impact podcast with Elaine and Diane. For more information on the Impact Parents community or to join Sanity School for Parents, please visit impactparents.com. If you like what you've heard, please share this podcast with friends who need similar guidance and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For the essentials of Elaine and Diane's coach approach to parenting, download a free tip sheet at impactparents.com/podcast.
Behavior therapy training for parents is actually recommended as a first-line treatment for complex kids. For information about Sanity School, our training program for parents or teachers, which has helped thousands of families around the globe, visit impactparents.com/sanityschool.